Hello, everybody. There's only one thing that is between you and the big party tonight, and that's me. So thank you for being here. My name is Jürgen Mohr. I'm from the Linde Global IT Department, running the analytics platforms, including the Tableau platform. And I want to tell you a little bit about working with extensions. I'm not sure whether I'm really qualified to talk about extensions, but I'll try to do my very best. Before we are coming into to these details, I would like to tell you a little bit about Linde. I think Linde is a well-known name, but I think less people know what Linde is really doing. So when you look at this picture, you can a little bit imagine that we are probably dealing with the gas. And what I would like to do in the next 5 to 10 minutes is tell you a little bit about the history of Linde, because I think it's quite an interesting story. Here we go. Karl von Linde, the later founder of the company, was a professor at the Technical University in Munich in the 19th century. And at that time, starting in the 1840s, the topic of getting cold environments was growing more and more intensively. And one big driver of that was that the beer brewery industry was changing from the British style of beer, top fermented brewing technology, British lager, British ale beer, to the bottom fermented European lager beer. The driver was that lager beer can be kept longer fresh, so it could be kept fresh during the summer, and the taste was preferred by the European countries. Probably that is the reason why Britain today does the Brexit. 150 years back, we did not like their beer. Now they don't like us. Very easy. So the need for refrigeration was increasing, and there was a competition at the 1870s where Karl von Linde participated, and there he immediately noticed that there is a lot of groundwork still to be done to optimize the technology to really getting cool environments, to get low temperatures. And he laid the groundwork for these mechanical technologies, and then also developed the first cooling machine, which was then installed in a brewery in Trieste, at that time Austria, now Italy. Cooling was the first part, and to get the link to the gas is that when you want to work with gas, you need to cool the air down, and then you can separate the different parts of the air by re-evaporating them. So you can separate nitrogen and oxygen and argon and all these kind of things. And that is basically the industry where Linde is in. So the start was having cooling environments. Then the successor and the real business case was then to create air separators. Then in 1879, he finally founded his company. And interestingly, there are some parallel structures to today's startups. It was also the case that the first years, although the technology was leading, still the market was not so really boosting, because the competitors, which was just ice, which was come during the winter and which was brought from the mountains to the cellars or from the Lake Wannsee to any place, which was working as well. And therefore the start was really challenging. But he had the luck that sometime in the late 1880s, there were some warm winters, there was low ice, and suddenly the demand for these type of machines and type of technology was available. And then the whole show started boosting. As you might have heard, when you are interested in shares, Linde this year in March merged with a company called Praxair in America. And because as that is quite an actual topic, I just wanted to share a little bit the history, what's behind this merger. Because what really happened, in 1907, Linde founded an American subsidiary, which then, in the turmoil of the First World War, got independent. So we lost the permissions to have anything in America, and that's why this company became independent. And this company, which is the subsidiary of original Linde, later became Praxair, and this is the company which we now merged with in 2018. So basically, it's mother and daughter coming together again. One small aspect, also during the topic with during the war, we lost the permissions to work with the brand mark in Americas. So Linde could not be present as Linde in Americas afterwards, and only in 1999 we bought back the permissions to again be present in the Americas as Linde. And now finally in 2018 the preparation work was done for doing the merger between Praxair and Linde, and March 1st this year the new Linde was founded, now called Linde PLC. Headquarters is sitting in Ireland now, so the both headquarters from Americas and from Munich moved to Ireland, but apart from that, it's just now acting as one company. Here we go. So some key figures about the new Linde. Basically, the size of the company is around 28 billion euros of sales. We make around 5 billion euros of profit. We have a market cap of around 90 billion plus minus, which makes us the number 3 in the German DAX. Employees around 80K and around 2 million customers in all the countries. I think we have subsidiaries in, 80 countries or something. No? You can see a little bit the different areas where we make our business. So we are spread all over the world in all 3 main regions. We have significant revenue and working in different industry areas. I'll come to that in a minute in more detail. Apart from that, one big focus of a production company. So we are basically a production company, and therefore security is quite a big issue. And basically in every of our internal presentations, security is always the first step to do, and that's why I also want to mention it here. It's a risky story working with gases, with high pressure environments, and therefore this is really a big and important topic for us to do so. Some words about the products that we have. So I mentioned we are dealing with gases, but it's not so much the gas that you know from the barbecue grills, but it's more the industrial gases. Nitrogen, oxygen, argon, these are the so-called air gases. These are gases that you can get out of air. So basically you can also say Linde makes money out of air, which is quite a cool concept. Only consultants have the same thing. The difference is consultants make it out of hot air, we do it out of cold air. So besides that, also other types of gases, process gases, which are created by chemical and technical processes, specialty gases for semiconductor industry and things like that, and also as a big portion, medical gases. So oxygen for breathing treatment is a very, very important topic there. Applications, like I mentioned, we are in manufacturing in metals, so you can improve the efficiency of creating metals, for example, by using the right gases. Food and beverages, if you have this frozen fast food or frozen convenience food, all these kind of things can be handled with that. And. Apart from that, a smaller department of us is also dealing with engineering. So beside selling the gas and producing the gas, we also install big plants, refineries, petrochemical plants, etc., all over the world. Here we go. Finally, some pictures, and I just want to give you a hint to this website, and there is also an app in the Apple Store available, which was created some years back, and is basically showing the gases from an artistical standpoint. So the artist had an impression of how does oxygen look like, how does nitrogen or hydrogen look like. And you also have a certain sound for that. So it's really an interesting thing. So if you're interested, nice to see. Few examples of the application. I mentioned it already, saving lives with oxygen, so for medical treatment. Another topic which is quite interesting, hydrogen. The majority of people thinks that the future is in the battery. The solution is the battery, but there is also a minority at the moment which is believing in hydrogen as the future of our energy management. And if that happens, then we are already there. So we also have a prototype, an e-bike, which is driven with hydrogen. And the last example that I want to give you, which is, I think quite interesting, it's ground freezing with nitrogen. This you need when you want to build a tunnel, but the soil is too thin, and if you drill the hole, it would break down. But if you dig it up, then you maybe lose trees, for example. So if you want to build a tunnel in a park, then you want to save the trees. And what you can do is you can freeze the soil, then you can drill your tunnel, then you protect the tunnel, and then you unfreeze it again, and then you have a tunnel and everything is done. This application is, for example, also used here in Berlin in 2009 when they were building up the Museum Insel, the big famous place with the Pergamon Museum and all these kind of things. And if you walk to the Unter den Linden, currently they're building the tube. There you also see that they use this kind of technology. All right, so far to Linde as a company. And the main thing that you heard from that is it's a big company. And what does it mean if you have a big company? Big companies have big processes. And one of the big processes is the budgeting process. So probably every company has a yearly budgeting process, but in some cases it's an easy process. Somebody decides that's the budget and everything's fine. Somewhere it is a complex process. And in our case, it is a complex process. So creating the budget is probably, half a year process until this budget is finally done. And that is okay. But then, if you have the budget for next year, suddenly next year is coming. And then, of course, reality deviates from the budget, from the plan. And the new topic that we had now is that we want to have a monthly forecast. How does the budget plan, how does the original plan change? So that means, if you look at this slide, I have my 12 months of forecast, and I have the point in time where I am. And now, when I'm in February, I have already the actuals from January, and I still have the plan for the rest of the year. But in January, I already know something. Yeah? I know maybe an investment is not taking place, a customer got bankrupt, or whatever. Yeah? So I have some adjustments that I can do compared to the budget plan of the business year. Yeah? Same game then in March. Yeah? I have the actuals for January and February. I have some more information. I can adjust my forecast for March until December. Yeah? And basically, in December, I still can give a forecast for December, which might change. Yeah? That is basically the whole story of the process. Yeah? Looks quite simple, but of course, I don't know, 5,000 cost centers. I don't know how many different cost types. Yeah? So a complex story. Also here, different subsidiaries and all these kind of things. The challenge that we had is that before the merger, the process was much simpler. Yeah? So we did more or less one forecast during the year, but not every month. And therefore, this was then easy to handle. You can spend your time and just get the forecast sometime in between. Now, having a monthly forecast, this was not possible anymore. Yeah? So this Excel-based and PowerPoint-based and whatever-based process was not working any longer. So we needed a change. Yeah? And as mentioned before the change, 250 people were involved. We send around a lot of emails for adjustment. We have a lot of different Excel templates, and we have a lot of a very long lead time to submit any information. And basically the question was, how can we improve the process efficiency of this forecasting process? Basically, the conceptual idea of the whole show was to come to a process which allows us to have only 2 days lead time after financial closing and deliver then the according forecast. One element of this idea is predictive forecasting. So having a kind of an option to say, given the actuals from the past, giving the experience from former years, what could be a potential forecast? Yeah? It's one idea. One can do that. I think many people talk about this predictive forecasting. Of course, it will have some weaknesses, but it could be a good start and a good input. Yeah? So that is the first step. But, of course, it will not work just automatically. Yeah? So we definitely will need a kind of an input tool to add the business know-how, to add the current events, what was happening there, the bankrupt customer building a new plant, or whatever options we can have. Yeah. And then finally, you have a kind of an iteration, and then an output tool which represents the forecast output for the next months then. Oops, sorry for that. When we are thinking about this idea of the process that we just described, basically we come to a potential system architecture. When we talk about a system agnostic concept, which would look like that. Yeah? Somewhere you have your budget plan, somewhere you have your actuals, which both go into somehow a kind of a database and are provided. And then you have a user interface, which is doing the visualization of the data and is somehow doing the maintenance of the adjustments. And that's more or less it. So with such an approach, we should be able to solve this topic to create a monthly forecast. And as we can see, the write back functionality would be the key for an interactive planning application. And when you think about write back, or you think about typing data into an application, then you probably all know the systems where you type data in. And most of the systems are transactional oriented. And that means you have a lot of data that you can type in, but you have only a few data around it. So you don't have much information provided for your typing. If you type your name, you know your name, but you don't see something. You only fill out the form, or you only fill out some figures. But when you're doing planning is the opposite. Planning is normally you need a lot of information, and then you type one figure out of this lot of information. And most of the tools don't provide this functionality. So if you define a web form or PDF form or whatever technology you use, you have the form, but you don't have the information layer around it. And there are only a few tools that I know on the market, SAP BW, integrated planning, Oracle Hyperion, and these kind of really big tankers, they are capable of doing these kind of things. But given the time pressure, given the cost aspect, that was not the way we could go for. And of course, the challenge was also that these complex tools provide good interactivity, but only limited visualization capabilities. And of course, all people that once worked with Tableau want to have a Tableau look and feel again. So that's why that was not really a good alternative, and we were thinking about, okay, what can we do with that? And therefore, the idea was using Tableau extensions. It was last year at the London Tableau conference, where it was first time presented, this concept of Tableau extension, and it was also mentioned that Tableau can do write back via these Tableau extensions. It was explicitly mentioned in the keynote, which is very interesting. Let me see, come on. And that's an interesting aspect, so I'll come to that in a minute. And this is where we started from. We have an analytics platform which is based on SAP HANA as a database, as a data source, and Tableau as our front end. We also have the normal SAP suite, but main focus here is Tableau. And therefore, did make sense to evaluate this concept of extensions. And when you see what Tableau is writing in this website, that the extension has a write-back functionality, so users can modify data in a whiz and change the data accordingly. That was basically the input of the whole show. When then my business partners came and told me, hey, we have this need for interactivity, I told them, hey, Tableau presented something like that, let's go for that. And of course, yes, let's do that. Yeah, we need that now. Very good. Oops, sorry for that. Okay, so we had a look at the Tableau extensions. This picture you all know, it's from the Tableau website. You have your extension in your visualization. You connect it to any kind of view that you already have. You maintain your data, or you can create any additional things like that. Really straightforward technology, working very easily. Important is it's running on a separate web server, but it can easily be integrated into a Tableau visualization. So when I look at this documentation that Tableau offered, to me it sounded reasonable that the solution could look like that. And as you know, security, compliance, all these kind of topics are always an important topic. I thought it's good to have only one place where I store my credentials. Yeah, so the connection to my database, Tableau is already knowing that connection, has all the information how to connect to the database. So why not using these credentials then also for the write-back functionality? Yeah? So that was my naive thinking, I would say. Yeah? So having my extension, having my web server with the extension app is writing back to Tableau and back into the database. But finally, it pointed out that this is not working. Tableau is by far not writing back into the database. Yeah. So Tableau is only extracting data out of the data sources, and you can have some interaction between your extension and your visualization, but you don't have this way back into the database. And that's why the final solution looks like that, meaning, okay, I have somehow to duplicate my credentials management. No? But of course, promise to the user, yes, we provide the functionality. You cannot take back this promise. Yeah? You don't want to live such a situation. So we tried our best and thought, what can we do? And we found a partner, Expand IT, which who was supporting us in this topic. Ricardo is also here, and you can later also talk to him directly. So our external partner supported us in developing this solution now. And the final solution now is that we have built up a complete web server with the front-end node for the visualization, with the according back-end node managing the credentials and the access to the database, and then having the direct link and the direct update in the database again. And then user can refresh the data into the desktop again, and then the updated data is available. Here we go. What I would like to do now, I want to give you a short impression on how this solution looks like. We were thinking about doing a live demo, but I think live demo is always a very risky thing in such an environment. So I decided to do it via a PowerPoint presentation. And as financial data are always a little bit sensitive as well, I decided to document the way how it works with the well-known Tableau sample example, and build a demo over there. So let's see. So when we start, the first thing that you need to do, and you're able to do, you can define what do you want to maintain. Yeah? What is your reference worksheet? What data do you want to maintain? Yeah? So you need to, or you can configure the UI how you would like to have it, or what data you would like to see. Yeah? So you see in the first section, which worksheet or which view of the worksheet do you want to use as a reference for your selection, for getting the key. Yeah? In our case, we just select this map. Once you selected the view, you see all the source fields that Tableau is offering for this view. Yeah? You see the state, you see the key figures that are presented, you see the latitude, longitude things, and everything that is available in this view is offered. Then you can decide, what do I really need? Do I need everything? Yeah, in this case, we kept, for example, the profit ratio and the profit, but basically it's not necessary. Yeah? You only need the key to know where you store the data that you maintain. But that you can control. And then, as a last step, you define what data do you want to maintain. Yeah? I want to maintain a forecast. I want to maintain a comment field. Yeah? Budgeting is always also about giving comments. Why did I change this figure in that and that way? Yeah? So you can also have a text field included, that is how you configure your extension. Once that is done, you have maintained all the fields that you want to have. You have maintained the type. You press the submit button, and then everything is prepared that you can start interacting with the sheet. And like I mentioned, you define the new data sets. And as you can see, these when setting up, then when activating this environment, the according attributes and key figures are then set up on the database. So the whole DLL stuff, the create statements, are done by the extension on the database. So based on the definition you took in your UI, the database tables are set up accordingly to then contain the data that you maintain finally. And so you see here the different attributes. Sales adjustment as a new field, and then you see the attribute on the table level. In this case, HANA, but can be any other database as well. So now everything is prepared. The database has the container where the data can store. The UI is defined. You can now start maintaining data. What you're doing, you're selecting the country that you want to maintain some data for. You press the button Add Data. You put the extension on your worksheet in a small field, and then just activate the Add Data. And then you see the extension is popping up, and it's opening up the according attributes that you defined. In our case, sales adjustments and comment. And now you can maintain the data, and the maintained data are then written back into the database and stored there. There is an option to automatically refresh the workbook. I think Tableau is exposing this functionality, but of course it's a risk when you have a complex workbook and with every click you do a refresh, you wait more for the refresh, then you get some work done. Yeah? So that's why we said we don't do that. Yeah? The user can refresh whenever he or she wants, but we only store it back into the database. Oops, sorry for that. Yeah. And then this is basically the whole principle. And now I come to some features which are, let's say, add-ons, extension of the whole concept. You see here, I have my interface. I maintain my data. I press my submit button, and I have it then stored on the database. And when I then select the country the next time with the same key, then I see, okay, I have already some data maintained. So I have my timeline, my Facebook timeline, whatever timeline, and I see, okay, I have already maintained some adjustments and some comment, and I can add additional comments. So I see over time, okay, what changes were done. Correction because of that, correction because of that, correction because of that. Nice feature for doing financial planning. Here we go. Next feature that we implemented, multiple selection. So it can happen, especially when you maintain some time ranges, that you need to maintain the same figure for multiple slots for multiple countries in this example. And therefore, we said, okay, we allow multiple selection. In this case, oops, sorry for that. You see selected multiple countries. You see all the countries in your extension, and then you maintain the value that you want to have. And finally, you see in the table, in the database, that the data is the same, maintained for all the countries. Maintaining different values for different countries in this way would be a little bit more complex, because then you have a problem with your screen size. So therefore, this is a feature that we implemented, but a feature for just having a multiple selection and playing around like in an Excel sheet, we did not yet implement it in that way. And then you also see, again, in the history, that all this data is available for the complete selection. So, if you remember the architecture slide, we have a web server running, a Tomcat server, where this extension program is hosted. But this web server is not protected. It's not linked to the Tableau. It's just a URL, and that can be contacted from everywhere. It does not need to be the Tableau workbook, the Tableau extension to access this URL, but it can happen anywhere. So basically, if you want to have a certain kind of security, or you want to know who is maintaining the data, then you need an additional component, and that's why we implemented an integration with the Active Directory. So, the Tableau desktop knows who's the user. You have your single sign-on or however you connect it, but this connection doesn't know anything. And to ensure that I have this information, what user is working now on my extension side, we added this possibility to have a Kerberos connection to this Tomcat server. So then now you have between the Tableau desktop and this extension authentication, and you can also then manage additional permissions on the extension via Active Directory concepts. That's then a standard technology again. And this gives us the opportunity to store also then back on the database who was the user that was changing the data. Before that, anybody could have typed in 100 and new figure, but now with this concept, we know who it was, which is also again important in financial budgeting. Who made this comment and who made this change to basically raise questions to this person. And here you see the difference when you look at the table in the database. Here, the user was not authenticated, so it's just an anonymous user. Here, the user was authenticated, therefore you get the AD user in your table information. What you saw until now was the Tableau desktop. And as you can see here, Tableau server is working exactly in the same way. And the only thing that is different is that here you see a different URL. So here you see the URL like you're used to in Internet Explorer or Chrome or wherever. Tableau desktop is also working like a server. So internally, I think it's a Chromium server. So it's a pure web technology, also Tableau desktop. And that's why it's so easy to interact between Tableau desktop and Tableau server, because the underlying web site is the same. It's only moved to another server, basically. And that's what you see here. It looks exactly the same, and you see the according URL. And the same story with the Kerberos authentication is valid. So you can publish the whole show in the same way like any other workbook as well. Finally, regarding making the link back to the process, to the business process forecasting, that is the dashboard that we designed for really supporting the forecasting process, the monthly forecasting process. And what you can see here is that we have basically the option for the user to select the key figures that he needs. Yeah, for taking his decision of what could be the new forecast. Yeah, he can select whatever he needs for taking this decision. We see here, as these small little lines, the calculated predictive forecast. Yeah, that's happening on the HANA database. We calculate that via an R algorithm and give that as an offer. Yeah, it has no restrictions. It's just an offer, just an information, so that the user has the additional information. Okay, computer thinks it is like that. I think it's different, or I accept. And then he can select the according bar and the according time slot and maintain the data that he wants to have. And as you can see, this looks completely like a standard Tableau workbook with the different folders and different options to visualization. So he has all the workbook functionality for getting information, for providing, fetching the information that he needs for his decision, and then maintain his decision in the Tableau extension. And you see the add data extension, the add data view of the workbook is just reduced to a small button which you need to call the extension. So where do we stand with this implementation? We have now undergone several productive runs. So I think we are now in the 4th productive run. Experience is very good. Yeah? Users are satisfied. So it's really well accepted. Of course, there is a lot of fine-tuning then on the process side, but this is independent from the extension. You need to find the granularity where you want to run where you really want to run the process and all these process aspects, but that is something the business needs to clarify, and the extension is completely independent from that. System is running stable. Was a new experience for us because it means we need to set up a separate Tomcat server. Yeah? Not in the sense of creating a website or internet or whatever, but really having an application platform. That's something where we also had our learning curve, also to get all these things done. And as we were also not the experts for managing these kinds of platforms. But that was also working very well. And important is that this extension that we are talking about here is a private extension. So it's running in the private environment. As you know, there are a lot of extensions available in the Tableau store, which are public, which are running anywhere, which is, of course, a big security risk. And I think there are a lot of discussions with these public extensions at the moment. And Tableau is trying to do a lot to make them more secure. But this is here no challenge here because it's private protected environment, and therefore no issue with any internet activities. The open topics that we currently see is that the desktop language setting is affecting the name of the attributes that are created on the database. Because, of course, Tableau has an internal administration of the data names, of the attribute names, and if you change your name, your language, then a different name is coming. And then, of course, this attribute is also then available in the SQL statement that you are using to fill the data, and is also present in the database. So if you create a German attribute, but then you log on as English and as an English person, then the system wants to provide the attribute in English, but for the system it's then a different attribute, and then your SQL statement will fail because it will not find this attribute. And that is something that can only be solved by Tableau, because can only be solved when there is let's say, a language-independent name of the attribute that we can use for creating the attribute on the database. But this is a small restriction, and basically in big companies, English is nevertheless standard language, so you need to give some guidelines, and then it's working fine. The other topics that we currently experience is that it's completely working only with Google Chrome, but not with Internet Explorer. So some things are working, but not everything. And the most stable Explorer in our case is Google Chrome. Yeah, and that was it basically from my side. We have the option, like I said, Ricardo is here with me from the company Expand IT. He also can give you a demo on his laptop if you are interested. Apart from that, we are open for questions.